Hello, I am Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science, Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here to give you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. So it's currently the eve of October 26, 2023 in the United States, and the morning of October 27, 2023 in the Middle East. Starting with the hostage situation, those kidnapped Israelis that are held by the Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in the Gaza Strip. A Qatari envoy today stated that it may be possible to secure the release of all hostages within several days. Presumably, he was referring to the civilian hostages rather than the IDF military personnel. However, he also stated that both sides will have to halt their fire in order to achieve this, and specifically noting that an Israeli ground invasion will complicate things. American officials later speculated that while Qatar has a positive influence on Hamas within this hostage negotiation, it is also trying to play both sides against each other. And after this, there were reports that in a meeting between Antony Blinken and the Emir of Qatar, Qatar agreed to reconsider its relationship with Hamas after this hostage negotiation is resolved. I remind everyone that Qatar hosts the Hamas leadership, specifically Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas. Relating to this, it was later reported that Hamas may be adding complications to the hostage deals, constantly agreeing to take a step forward and a step back in order to forestall an Israeli invasion. And finally, a report from today, Abu Ubaida, who is the spokesperson of the Al-Qassam Brigade, Hamas's military wing, stated that 50 hostages have been killed in Israeli attacks in the Gaza Strip. I emphasize that this is currently very unconfirmed. It is very possible that Abu Ubaida and Hamas are using this statement in order to mount more pressure on the hostage negotiation. It is also possible that Abu Ubaida is referring to the bodies of Israelis that were kidnapped in the initial attack. Unclear at this time, this is completely unconfirmed, but that announcement was made today. On to the ongoing fighting from the Gaza Strip. There were continuous rockets and missiles as every day fired from the Gaza Strip towards the center of Israel and the southern parts of the country. So missiles targeted the Gush Dan and Shfila areas, cities like Tel Aviv, Ramat Gan, Bat Yam, Rishon LeZion, Hulon, and the south of Israel, including Ashkelon, Ashdod, Netivot, and the entire area surrounding the Gaza Strip. There was one missile that hit the town of Rehovot and caused an electrical failure in the city. Regarding the IDF retaliations, the IDF reported that it carried out over 250 air raids into the Gaza Strip, along with a substantial ground invasion into the northern part of Gaza in a nightly raid with some tank units. This is the first time the IDF, in the current escalation, is announcing a ground invasion beyond local skirmishes along the border. It was a local invasion that then pulled back. The IDF spokesperson, however, did state that nightly raids will continue, and he added that their aim is to attack terrorists and lay the groundwork for future steps, presumably the future ground invasion. The IDF also reported several high-profile assassinations throughout the last 24 hours. These include the deputy head of Hamas intelligence, Shadi Baroud, and it was reported that specifically Baroud is one of the people who orchestrated the October 7th attack alongside the leader of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, Yahya Sinwar. In addition, there were 3 commanders of the Darj Tufah unit assassinated. This is a unit that is one of the most prominent Hamas units in Gaza City itself. Among those assassinated was Rafet Abbas, who is the leader of the unit. And finally, a commander of the Northern Khan Yunis Brigade, Hassan Abdallah, was also assassinated in an airstrike in the last 24 hours. Now on to a report that came in recently. According to Egypt, 6 people were injured in a rocket attack that landed near the Taba area. It is currently unclear what this relates to. Taba is a town that borders Israel. It is possible this is shrapnel from the ongoing fighting, a rocket that landed in the area, a misfire. The IDF said that they are reporting what happened at this time. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip, over 8,000 people in the Gaza Strip have been killed since the war began nearly 3 weeks ago, responding to some criticism specifically from the U.S. administration that these numbers may be skewed. The Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip today published a list over 240 pages with the names and ID numbers of all those that were killed, trying to substantiate that the lists are accurate. On to some of the humanitarian aid and situation in the Gaza Strip. There were initial reports today that Israel is considering exchanging fuel for the hostages, and this may be associated with the Qatari messages that the hostage negotiations, or at least some hostages, may be released in the coming days. Following these initial reports, IDF spokesperson stated that Israel is not considering allowing fuel into the Gaza Strip for now, adding that Hamas will relies heavily on fuel and will simply use it to continue its ongoing attacks. In addition, President Biden today stated that the administration is working to increase the supplies of food, water, and medicines that flow into the Gaza Strip, A total of 12 trucks today carrying such humanitarian aid, food, water, and medical supplies entered through the Rafah crossing from Egypt. Onto the West Bank, there will continue to go level escalations as there are every day as the IDF is clamping down on different activities in the West Bank. There are reports of 1 or 2 members of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad that were killed in confrontations with the IDF in the town of Jenin. Onto the north, unlike the last several weeks, today was relatively calm. There were no rocket attacks and very small amount of low-level confrontations and border incursions. The IDF targeted one unit that was firing an anti-tank missile in the area. Following reports yesterday regarding high-profile meetings between Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and the leaders of Hezbollah, Razi Hamed, who is a senior member of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, gave an interview to the Associated Press, to AP, and stated that while Hezbollah is very active in attacking Israel, Hamas expected more. Hamas expected more of its involvement. Now, this comes in addition to statements made yesterday by Salah al-Aruri also saying that Hamas is calling on Hezbollah to fulfill its mission and that their aspirations and Hamas's aspirations are the same. There appears to be increasing pressure from Hamas on Hezbollah to enter the fray, which more than anything else may indicate that Hezbollah actually is not planning on entering in full force, and that is why Hamas is all of a sudden trying to mount this pressure. In addition, Razi Hamed added that there are no talks about peace with Israel or about a two-state solution, and that at this point there is no talks about any coexistence. In addition, relating to the North, UNIFIL, which is the UN mission to southern Lebanon, reported today that over 20,000 people have fled the southern parts of Lebanon, anticipating a possible escalation with Israel. On to some of the regional developments. After it was reported in the last several days that there were several attacks by different Iranian militias against U.S. targets in Syria and in Iraq, the Pentagon today announced that the United States attacked facilities in eastern Syria that were housing both the Iranian Revolutionary Guard as well as some of these militias. The Pentagon also stated that in addition to the 2 aircraft carriers and the 2,000 Marines already sent to the area, the Pentagon is now sending 900 more soldiers to the region, and these are specifically soldiers that are going to bolster the anti-air batteries, both anti-aircraft and anti-missile batteries that have been deployed in the region. In addition, the Iranian foreign minister, who is currently in New York in the United Nations, stated today, and I'm quoting, that the Israeli genocide against Palestinians must cease, and that if it continues, the fires of the region will not skip over the United States. This is the first time that Iran is explicitly threatening the United States. Previously to this, it has been different militias in the area that said that they will attack U.S. interests. In this case, the Iranian foreign minister is explicitly saying the fires from the region will reach the United States. On to some of the political developments and trends that occurred today. The European Council, after a lot of internal arguing, issued a statement today regarding the war. It condemned Hamas heavily and included and stated that Hamas using Gazans as human shields is part of the Hamas crimes, and it called for the release of all hostages. In addition, it stated that Israel has the right to defend itself, but also that this can only be done within the confines of international and humanitarian law. The European Council also called on the creation of humanitarian corridors within the Gaza Strip to allow civilians to evacuate safely and to allow humanitarian aid to flow into the Gaza Strip freely. In addition, today, the foreign ministers of 9 different Arab countries issued a joint statement in which they called for an immediate ceasefire, stating that the lack of political resolution in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is what led to the ongoing cycle of violence. And finally, Russia today hosted a Hamas delegation. It was led by the deputy leader of Hamas, Musa Abu Marzouk. According to the Kremlin, this meeting occurred in order to discuss regional developments. Israel, however, heavily condemned this meeting and accused Russia of supporting the Hamas movement. And finally, some future speculation regarding the future of the war and Israel's plans. It was reported today that in regards to the 125,000 Israelis that have evacuated from the north of Israel and from towns hid down south, Israel is currently looking for housing possibilities for them until the end of 2023. So this may give some indication of at least the time frame that Israel is considering the escalation is going to continue. And it was again reported today that while the United States is not pressuring Israel or suggesting when it can carry out its ground invasion, there is growing concern in the administration that Israel has not fully thought out its day after plan. What happens after Israel carries out its plans and quote-unquote destroys the Hamas movement? What happens next? The U.S. administration is very concerned about this. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.